So we've gone through the basic PCT. Now you've got a good overview of the astrology standpoint. Now the next phase is homeopathy and how that all fits in. As part of your course, what we are doing is including for you is a simulator which is one of these that makes homeopathic remedies. Forever. It's a mysterious little box, okay, that will graft and make remedies for your practice for a long time to come. It's sort of out of the closet. We used to not talk about these as homeopaths at the disdain of the pharmacies, but I can tell you that that little box really works, okay? I'm going to give you the principles why it does. You notice in the newsletter that we gave you that there's this thing in the back called a Gallivarden kit. And I want to explain to you who Gallivarden is and why right from the start when you enroll in the program, as part of your package, you get one of these devices with a Gallivarden kit of vials that last forever, essentially. They will work an infinitude of time. And that's these little vials that get put into the device once I get the tape off. There's the remedies there, and there's a little kit. It's a handy little thing, and it makes electromagnetic remedies for you. And these will help your patients enormously, and I'm going to show you why this works the way it does from my perspective, and also a growing consensus in the scientific field as to why it does. Then you'll understand why we make it part of the program. So you remember I mentioned to you that the fundamental principle that we're working with, the first axiom, is that matter is condensed light. It's based on a condensation of energy. So basically the scale runs from the optical range all the way down to ELF. And this is given to you in more detail in my book, Photobiotics. But essentially light down to extremely low frequencies. And as I showed you on the slide prior to this, your body is basically one big demodulating circuit running from optical properties of light through infrared, through microwave, through radio wave, and down into very low frequencies, down to extremely low frequencies. And your body responds to each band of the electromagnetic spectrum. The one that's of most concern to us when it comes to this type of work in photocognitive therapy is the radio frequency band, because that's how your brain receives and sends signals and transmissions throughout your body. Above this optical range of light, you get into a zone called the etheric band, ether coming from the Greek word. Okay, it's also called prana, also called qi in Chinese medicine, orgone by Reich. Soft electron is another term that we use, talking about the ether body. And this is of primary concern for us because the emotions, the astral body, or the subconscious, has to filter through this in order to get into the light band, to where your body, your brain will recognize it. So everything that we do is centered around activating the light body and the paraphysical body in order for the astral body to be accessed. Okay? Because each band acts as a filter to the next band. So therefore, if you have a body, an ether body, that is very toxic, toxic metals, dead flesh, pus, bacteria, all of these microbial life forms, there has been discovered since the early part of the century that there are microbes that are not even in the optical range. They can't even be seen by an ordinary naked eye. They exist in the ultraviolet band. Okay? That's what Rife and that's what Nissans and Enderlein and all of the people that worked with dark field microscopy, Bechamp, Almquist, all of these people worked with using prisms to demodulate the frequency so that they would become visible to the naked eye. So there are microbial life forms that are invisible to our naked eye, yet they're very infectious and they're very toxic. And they too have their own energy field. So when this whole band here is toxic, it acts as a filter for the astral body, so therefore you can't see. And these people are what we call the blocked case. You take them back, you regress them, you ask them to look at yesterday. You ask them to look at last week, you ask them to look at last month, and they see black, 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 black. They don't see anything because they're so blocked. Okay? So what our program is designed to do is to loosen up this light body so that these bands become open. Now
Can that be cleared out by radionics? Is that another method of looking?
I'm
clear that out?
going to get to that.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. Now the bottom line is that when the astral body, or what we'll call the subconscious, that's what the two terms are essentially interchangeable. When it filters on down and gets through this band, gets into the optical range, which now we're into the tissue systems of the body, we are into sensation. And when you have a sensation under photocognitive therapy, it is a powerful sensation. It affects the ground substance of your very body. People will sweat. People will have goosebumps. Okay? It gets right into the ground substance of the body, particularly the autonomic and central nervous systems. You relive the experience. Okay? As a result of that, we know now that, that as a result of that vision, it filters down into the radio frequency range. And that's why the old saying is, if you believe in something long enough, it will come true. You know those cases? Those are people that, you know, the 50-year-old businessman just knows he has cancer, believes he has cancer, goes to this doctor, goes to the oncologist, and everyone's saying, no, you don't have cancer, no, you don't have cancer. But if he believes that long enough, guess what?
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
2 or 3 years later, bingo, bango, there's neoplasia in the system. Because the belief filtered down from sensation to etheric body to actual form. Okay? And that's how the disease process works. That's what we deal with. So when we break this pattern out here, there's nothing to filter down here to hold the matrix together, in this case neoplasia or cancer. So it collapses its own field. See how it works? In addition to that, you have immune modulating factors and a host of other conditions that come into field with all of this, but that's just to give you a very simple cue point.
It's the same process by which we can create what we want.
Yes, that's right. Because energy, the tendency of the physical universe is condensation of energy. So first you believe, then you perceive, and then it becomes reality.
Where's the homeopathy in there now? It's working on the etheric one?
Now, where's the homeopathy? Let's go back through a very simple exercises. What is it that creates and keeps these traumatic incidents and memories in the toroidal space? Words create them, and then the perpetuation of the state is they are there because of resistance. Okay? They are there because of resistance. They maintain their static charge because of the resistance of ego for confrontation. And the way to break the resistance is, Hahnemann said it very, very well, a disease is destroyed in a permanent manner by a similar force, yet more powerful in nature. Okay? Would you like to quote?
Yes.
It's right out of the manual. Because it runs a tie with everything that we're studying and doing as to why these things perpetuate themselves. A weaker dynamic affection is permanently extinguished in the living organism by a stronger one, if the latter is very similar to the former in manifestation. Thus are cured both physical affections and moral maladies. Isn't that beautiful? In other words, a disease, by homeopathically speaking, is a potentiation of a more powerful force that bears a strong resemblance to its original manifestation. So what is homeopathy? Likes cure like. Well, that's a very simplistic perception. Basically, what would happen is that the homeopath would work with a materia medica called provings. And generally, these were homeopathic students at the different colleges around the time of the late 1800s. And each student would be given a bottle to be taken over the period of a course of 30 days. And they would practically be poisoning themselves with this morbid energy based upon a remedy. And then after about 5 to 7 days' time, they start getting weird sensations and reactions. And they start recording them meticulously, hour by hour, day by day. That was their assignment. And I've met some of these old homeopaths that remember their professors at the Hahnemann Medical School and elsewhere doing this to them. Okay? When the consensus of 3 or more students got the same reactions consistently, they became part of what we call the materia medica. Okay? Now what that is these remedies are highly attenuated to the state of a paraphysical, if not astral domain. Okay? And they are in effect poisons to the etheric body. It's just as poisonous as going out and buying antiques from a house where a person was murdered and placing them in your bedroom, and you wonder why you have funny dreams at night. It's an etheric poison that has now come into your life, right? So the remedy acts as a proving where the sensations and the reactions, particularly the mentals, were considered the most important, were recorded and put in the materia medica. So now, as is well known in homeopathy, if in the toroidal space there are these weird sensations and mental proclivities, and that same remedy is given to that person that matches those, it wipes them out. Because there's no resistance, number one, and it's of a similar nature, number two. It potentiates them and expunges them, because it's another more powerful force that bears a strong resemblance to the original manifestation. So therefore, as a result of homeopathy, we've developed what we call graphic pictures of the personality of each remedy. We have a sulfur type. Okay? We have a natrum muriaticum type. We have an ignatia type. Quite a few ignatias in the room here today. We have nat murs. We have calcarea carbonicas. They don't frequent photocognitive therapy seminars as a rule. They're a little too conservative. We have lycopodiums. They come all the time. They're curiosity seekers. Lycos are a dime a dozen. And then we have certain other types that would never come to a photocognitive therapy seminar. You know, for example, an anacardium orientalis. Okay, the picture of anacardium I used to teach in my school was you picture a pickup truck, no hubcaps, shotgun rack with a shotgun. And on Friday night, when they open the car door opens and empty beer cans spill out onto the pavement. Okay? This is anacardium orientalis, classic graphic picture of an anacardium. So we would teach the graphic personality pictures of it so that you have a handle on understanding the totality of the remedy. Okay? Like, there's a very fine line in homeopathy between a nat mur and an ignatia. Natrum muriaticum is salt. Ignatia amara is a botanical. And there's a very fine line between natrum mur and ignatia. And I always use this one as the guiding principle for the prescription. Okay? In a fight, okay, both have the desire to pick up something and throw it. The difference being the nat mur will think of picking it up, but the ignatia will absolutely throw it and hurt. So that's the guiding principle I use between nat mur and ignatias when it comes to the female prescription. So as a result, we create these graphic drug pictures of the remedies, And what we're working with is this toroidal space out here, these little dark points of light, okay, that drive impulses and reactions. The homeopathic is a paraphysical energy. You can see now what happens is it donates energy to the reaction to spin it off out of the aura. Okay? I'll give you a good Ignatia story. Like Ignatia stories? I always like it. They're the juiciest ones. Had this lady come in. She was a very conservative banker. She was from Atlanta, Georgia. Her and her husband moved to Miami Beach because of the inordinate allergy problems they have in Georgia. You know, Georgia's sort of the pollen bowl of the country. And she was getting all these allergy shots and all these things over the years, and she was moderated through all of this, but she came to me because she heard about me and this and that. So I gave her a prescription of Ignatia, 200th potency. And 2 weeks later, this lady came back, and it wasn't even the same person. I almost didn't recognize her. You know, something had just dramatically changed about her. So I go through the usual repetitorization, recall, where, you know, this symptom, that symptom, how are you? And, oh, by the way, how's your husband? Oh, we're separated. Something happened. You know, just something happened that changed her. That was the key that she needed. It was an amicable separation, and guess what happened to all the symptoms? About 80% of them had completely she was just enthralled with what had happened to her, but something else happened, you see? Something else happened, so I just decided not to be part of that happening. I was very happy she got results. So that's how kind of homeopathy works, and you can see now that the reason we use homeopathy, why it will be so valuable for you, is because now you're going to be dealing with these things, and you're only going to get to them in a certain amount of time during any one session, and then you're going to have what we call the bubble up. They're going to have dreams, they're going to have images, they're going to have deja vus, they're going to have reactions, they're going to just cry when they don't even know why they're crying. See? Because now that the conscious mind has met the subconscious, there's a whole lot of business going on down under, right? Because communication lines were established, and now they're in self-perpetuating processing, because they've gone through that 1 or 2 single session processes with you, and now they're in a cure state. They're in a cure mode. Love and forgiveness has been established, right? Ego's not fighting subconscious anymore. Aberrated thinking starting to slow down. The little auditory dialogues that are going on inside are starting to cease. There's calm and peace that starts to come through the individual. Thought is not preceded by effort and countered by counter effort so much. You know? It's time to sit back and take a look. Come at one with yourself. You see how all this works? Now what we use the homeopathy for is to polish off this whole dynamic, you see? We polish it off. Now, what we're going to do with you is you're going to go through Dr. Gallivarden's 30-week protocol as part of your training package. 15 remedies taken every 2 weeks according to his prescription, a general improvement in the psychic condition, 15 polycrests. You take them for 3 days. Okay? Doesn't cause approving. If the remedy is not needed, there is no reaction. That's the nice thing about homeopathy. When you miss the prescription, nothing happens. But when the prescription hits, a lot happens. So you go through his recommended dynamic, which he, over a period of time, he was a brilliant homeopath. This man was a Jesuit priest and a homeopath in the late 1800s, and primarily confined his practice to the treatment of what he called psychic conditions. These were disjointed households, husband and wives fighting each other, and so forth and so on. And this was his calling, this was his mission. So I have his material, it's very rare material, and we're going to make a course out of it. We're going to make a course out of it. Because all of these remedies fit into the whole thing that we're doing. And let me show them to you. Because what we do is we place people on the tone scale of consciousness. And here it is. This is a detail of the tone scale, of which I also have the counteracting remedies for all of these type of emotional proclivities, you see. Where we would like to be is way up here at 100, serenity of being. There is no remedy needed at that juncture. And way down here at the 0 point, we got shame, blame, pity, and accountability. Okay? Very low morbid emotions. Very dirty down there, drippy, 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 in the astral goo. People carry this around, right? Then as you move up scale, you get into fear, worries, and anxieties. Then you get up into apathy and boredom. Then you get up into anger and swearing, striking and biting, wooing and weeing, right? And then as you get further up the scale, you get into conservatism, all the way up into keen interest and cheerfulness to enthusiasm. Then when you hit the band of 50, you're right into aesthetics, artful appreciation of your environment. And then 60s and 70s, you get into the revolutionaries, the doers, not just the thinkers. Down here you've got the thinkers, but when you get up above 50, you got the doers. Think and do become at one. As you get up towards 80, very high level logic and Hermeticism. Now each one of these bands, just like in the electromagnetics, we have remedy bands in here. We have remedy bands in here. We got veratrum albums, we got calcarea carbonicas, we got pulsatillas, we got sepias. You see? And you'll learn the remedies from a different dynamic. So if you go through a very nasty plum bum episode with a patient, you can immediately give them a remedy to kind of polish off the treatment, knowing full well that thy kingdom will be done. And it'll be the end with it. So the bubble ups are covered, the dream states and everything else. It's very, very interesting work, I can assure you.
Are you saying that we are going to be able to create our own remedies with the simulator boxes that you're
Yes, I'm going to show you how and why.
Okay, and what, maybe this is jumping in, what level are they on? Are they on sea level or
Oh, any potency you want.
any level? Okay.
Yeah, any potency you want. Just
Have you used rescue remedy to diffuse the bubbles at all?
it works. It's just that
Not as specific.
the problem with the flower remedies, in my experience, is they're too short acting. They're too short acting. When you can get down there with a real grubby nosode and dig that stuff out, it's when you get a much better reaction.
What about the gemstone elixirs? What about those?
They're very high medicine, okay? But here is the let me show you. You want to know the whole problem of holistic healing?
Yeah.
Just in a nutshell, you want the problem of holistic healing
Yeah.
today. The problem of holistic healing is that the practitioner is not able to place the patient on the tone scale. Because just as you have the tone scale of emotions, you also have the tone scale of remedies. And when you work way up high with light, gems, flowers, these are very beautiful substances. But they don't have the power to destroy the morbid force that's locked into the aura. They're very short acting. Okay? It's like to someone down here with cancer, I mean, that's like a glass of wine up there, you know? It's going to be short acting. The emotions will be a little lifted and nice, but you're not going to get down into the grubbies. So as you go down scale, remedy-wise, okay, as you come down from flowers, then you get into the botanicals, and that has a whole spectrum of those that are nice and those that are toxic. Because down in the toxic domain, you have pulsatilla, you have ignatia, you have baptisia, okay, veratrum album, conium. Oh, conium. I flatly refuse a conium. I just don't want to get involved with coniums. Coniums and I don't get along. That's hemlock. Oh, coniums are all over Miami Beach. Okay, they went there to die. They stand on street corners, and they walk with a cane. They wait for the light to turn green, and then they walk out into the middle of the road like, please, hit me. That's Kanaya. Now I used to practice on Miami Beach, and I did my karma. And then as you go down scale, now you get into the nosodes. These are morbid secretions from human and animal bodies obtained from pus, catarrh, bacterial platings, organ portions, neoplasias, carcinomas. I mean, these really get into the grungies, okay? And if you're going to be a purist in homeopathy today, I mean, in other words, if you want to get results, you use nosodes because people are full of morbidity, okay? So the problem with holistic healing today is, you know, I see these practitioners, they get off on all these tangents. Like this year, what's the big one this year? Is it the shiitake mushroom, or, you know, I don't.
Kombucha.
Yeah, kombucha. It's all, everything's a kombucha problem now. See, you just, all you need is the elixir of kombucha and everything's going to go away. And it's, you know, it's such ridiculum. So you have to place everything on the tone scale. So if you've got a patient way down here with cancer, you're going to have to work them upscale before they respond to these remedies. You have to use nosodes and get out the grungies, right? Stir up the immune system a little bit. We want a little pus, a little boil coming out, a little vomiting. That's okay. No big deal. We want bloody catarrh. We want, you know, things coming out. And then as we go upscale, we get into the more refined remedies with the mental proclivities, which is what this course will be confined to, is just this domain here, because we're not saying by any means photocognitive therapy treats cancer, are we? Are we?
No.
Oh, thank you.
No.
Thank you. And then at some point when the light body gets so high, you know, so high, when you can get up here with light and you can actually taste the difference in colored water, you've arrived. That's red today. Sorry, it's a little strong for me. Now you're there, see, because your light body is so mobile, right? You're so responsive to that. That's all the reason for taking people upscale. So now you may ask, how is it that we make these remedies? You all got the concept?
Yeah.
Okay. How do we make the remedies? The remedies absolutely work with frequency bands. And it was the conception of a very brilliant homeopath and radiesthesist in England named Malcolm Ray that reasoned that if a remedy could be destroyed by a magnet, then in fact it should be able to be created by one. And that, in fact, is the case. So this little simple device has a magnet, in which case you take a sample of a material. Has to be physical. Has to be a physical suspension, so you have some active molecules in there, okay, in which to graft a magnetic pattern from. And that magnetic pattern is transferred into a little potentiometer which adjusts the field. For example, if the pattern was that big coming in, it may only be this big going out because all you're going to plug in there is a little 12X or 30C. And then that in turn goes to an outwell that's wrapped with magnet wire, and then you place in a blank bottle and you let it sit for 3 minutes to pull the charge. So you put your blank in. This is just distilled water. Place it in the outwell. Oh, it's okay. I can just hold it up. Thank you. You place in your original. You dial in your potency. And the timer will clock it for you from there. It's cooking.
What did you put in there?
An original sample. In this case, number 15 was ammonium carbonicum. So in 3 minutes, that'll be ammonium carbonicum.
And so you can dispense it in water rather than on tablet?
Yes, dispense it in water.
Alcohol or anything?
No.
Do you then...
Because you're going to use it immediately.
Do you transfer it to a larger one or just what is there?
It's there.
Yeah, I mean, you don't contaminate with it anymore.
No, you don't contaminate anything else. They take it right from the cap. They would just simply take a cap full 3 times a day for 3 days.
Why don't you pass that bottle around so that you have what we have available for the next practitioner?
And be careful, it's ammonium.
Oh, yes, yes. just use distilled water, did you say?
Yeah,
or-
just distilled water.
Okay.
You can make remedies all day long, forever.
Can you use something other, you make your own no-sode or?
Oh yes, you can do
You
anything.
don't have to use your bottle. I
No.
can make a no-sode myself from whatever the person they have. Okay, good.
You can do wonders with a Q-tip.
Yes.
Yeah, you can create auto no-sodes. You can take a drop of their blood. If they have a urinary infection, a drop of their urine, you could make a no-sode from that. It goes on and on and on and on. What we want to confine our study to is the psychic parameters of what we call the polycrests, okay? And the polycrests are the great remedies of homeopathy. And there's about 50 of them. And we'll teach you the graphic drug pictures of them so that you intimately know them, right? So that you get to a very good point of perception where you got very good handles on remedies from the psychic aspect. Both the morphological build of the person, then the emotional proclivities, and then the reaction states and what they get to, so that when you get real good, then you know the remedies to a point that if you ever called me a calcarea, you would be automatically terminated from my name. Dare they call me a calcarea? Calcarea. How nauseating. See? So, did you know what he called me? So, now that you understand that dynamic, we're going to go to the next step, which is the radionic portion of it. And most people that I know that speak to me or say something about radionics, I quickly come to realize they don't know absolutely anything about it.
Right.
Because they confuse cyclotronic reactions in medicines from radionic medicines. And radionics did not begin that way. It began with Abrams. I've written a volume 13 of my series in electroacupuncture. It's very well spelled out the history of Abrams, what he did, the schools that went off from Wigglesworth and from Dr. Miller and Hieronymus, et cetera, including one of the most famous chiropractors in chiropractic who was one of the founders of the Pathoclast pathometric movement that has sworn into secrecy by his lawyer because he was threatened by the federal authorities shortly after World War II. This is information that was radically suppressed because it was a major threat not only to the drug companies, but even worse so because it was a threat to military intelligence. So now I'll give you the reason for that. You have an atom with a nucleus, okay? Its supposed weight is 1,827 times more than that of the guiding electron, which works in a quantum state. Optically speaking, a like frequency or like energy of photons that bombards the atom causes the atom to jump circles, and then when it falls back to stabile state, it goes from liable to stabile, it emits electromagnetic radiation, correct? It emits light, and then it also emits heat. So we know where light and heat comes from. Heat is basically the speed of the gyration of the electron around the nucleus, correct? So then where does radio frequency come in? I asked myself. It's the fundamental of the electron itself, because the electron spins on its own orbit just like the Earth spins on its own orbit going around the sun. It's a fundamental. And since we know that there's a well-known concept called the covalent bond, which operates the entire human framework, your whole body is carbon-based covalency. Incoherent, I may add, optically speaking. These electrons are shared between two atoms, and that sharing causes them to stay together, correct? All right, well, if you were to change the fundamental of this electron, you could change reaction rates of matter. And that's what radionics was saying, was that when a body goes into a diseased state, it creates radio frequencies of a certain order. For example, let's just call this hepatitis. If we took that frequency from the body and inverted it 180 degrees out of phase, it would cause a well-known reaction in acoustics and electronics called phase inversion, or neutralization. So what the original radionic equipment did was it took frequencies from the body and put them back in 180 degrees out of phase to cause a neutralization. Okay? And we found a guy that actually had a original pathoclast. Let me see if I got, I think I have a slide of that here. The original pathoclast in his garage. He was an old osteopath, and he loaned it to us because back in those days these instruments cost, in terms of our money, they cost well over $10,000. This was the original pathoclast here. You can see the stick plate, and it's a big machine. This is a tube amplifier. Pretty crude electronics, but very sophisticated for its time. And here you can see the article that came out, Treat Faulty Gland with Radio Waves. A novel radio wave treatment for sickness of endocrine glands has been developed in pre-Hitler Vienna according to an official American Medical Association. We have to do something about this. The principle of treatment is designed identical to that with the pathoclast. By radio wave stimulation, the patient's glands are either put to sleep or awakened. Faulty working of the glands means both over and under activity, and the Vienna method attempts to rectify both conditions according to this report. That was the work of Dr. J. Samuels. Here's another article, We Are Human Radios. A radio microscope, a new scientific instrument, which is now, you can't even find these in the Library of Congress. I tried. There were some publications that have disappeared off the shelf. Okay? Revealed an entire world of unseen rays was announced by the American Association for Advancement of Science. Man himself, as well as all kinds of supposedly inert matter, constantly emit the rays that this instrument detects. Well, you see what they were getting at. If they could broadcast radio waves that would stop the growth of plants, change weather patterns, all this sound familiar? That's why they wiped it out. Okay? So, anyway, we have brought it back in an IC version, which actually has a wider band frequency sensitivity rate. So part of your course that we're giving you is, we're just going to call them little chakra neutralizers. And I have the rates for the chakras, okay? And it'll be a little pocket device that will have a pickup coil, and you can treat yourself once daily and have a neutralization of your pathodynes in your chakras to start balancing your body. The reason we want you to experience this is because it's pretty sensational. You start to feel tingling go through you with this instrument. I mean, you know something's happening. It's like taking a very strong homeopathic. It's quite interesting. But once you get familiar and you work with this now, see, what we anticipate you will be doing is either loaning or selling these to your patients, because we're going to make them available very inexpensively as part of the treatment too, because when they bubble up, you can see now what happens is, since this goes down to the radio frequency bands, these bubble ups is going to churn up things in their bodies that needs to be neutralized and wiped out. So you can put them on a pathodyne treatment after a session, after they've gone through a heavy emotional upheaval, or you can give them a prescription of a chakra neutralizing device to take home to sort of moderate the action. So now you have a little taste of vibratory medicine. And here are the rate codes. I'll just show them to you how we worked them out. We have a full-scale professional machine too, which also does not just treat, but it also diagnoses using a stick plate, which means that you have to be clear in order to operate this thing properly, but that will come with you in time. But we've got the chakra rates here, what the values are. We've got vitality rates, lymph stasis, spinal pressure, acidosis, genetic memories. We've got psoric, syphilitic, and psychotic miasms, tubercular, and carcinosis. And then I've got the Saturnine afflictions down here, all of the rates for the various locations of Saturn and what they do. So you'll be able to do a full astrobiotic workup with your patients.
CR, something rate, C rate.
That's a code rate on the machine.
Okay.
Condition rate, that means. Okay. It's a big instrument. Michelle has one. She can show it to you when you get with her at some point. I suppose it wouldn't be fair to just kind of, you know, heave all this material on you without giving you some practical pointers and advice, because, you know, it gets to a point that I know you're overwhelmed at this point. If it was me first time, I would be too. It's an awful lot to grasp. But I think it was necessary to give you the overview of what photocognitive therapy is. You know, you can see it's a very big spectrum of conditions here. It challenges the world's religions. It challenges every thought or belief that we had. It challenges all the way through. It's a challenge. In which case, there's always thoughts preceded by what? Effort, and countered by counter-effort. So we need to break free of all that condition. And for me, that's just a given, because I've been doing this the whole part of my adult life. But maybe for some of you, it's just a new experience to be realized and cognizant of. So I wanted to give you some keynotes today on mental yoga, because this is ingrained and entrenched all throughout the course that's in this manual here. Practical exercises that, I have to say, you know, I've written 13 volumes just on electroacupuncture, in addition to the photobiotics book, in addition to manuals for all kinds of things down through the years. But even my wife complimented me on this manual that I did. And I only gave it to her just to proof it before I take it and give it out. Just proof it for me. And she says, this is extremely profound material. This is going to change a lot. You can't help to be changed but just reading it. It's an oh my God manual. So the concept of yoga, I've given you all of the distal things, but let's talk about what we do as part of this yoga dynamic. And I think you'll see that anybody that gets involved in this is never going to be the same person. It's because the healing starts with the self. Because how can you go out and heal others if you, in fact, are not healthy? That's just like a 350-pound medical doctor running a weight loss clinic. Or someone running a skincare salon with wrinkles and gaudy makeup caked on like pancake mix, you know? It's the same thing. So we have to get clean and clear, because it's just more than that. It's to the necessity of your clients that you're regressing through these sessions to remain neutrally clear through the process. So what we deal with throughout all of this, again, is the chakras. The chakras are tantamount to the entire practice. Understanding the chakras, because there are emotional proclivities rooted in each chakra. So we have to find where the chakral stigmas are in order to access with the correct color and to kind of clear the field, as we say. And here you see we get pretty in-depth into understanding the chakras, to the point that we have them down to the radio frequencies they operate at. Oh, and this, by the way, you're not supposed to know. This is part of military intelligence.
Okay.
It is.
We'll blanket it.
No, write it down. Because these are the frequency bands where the little pocket bioneutralizer works. It runs from 15 kilohertz to an accuracy of 500 kilohertz. So it runs these gamuts of these lower base chakras here. Get it? So here you can see from another standpoint how the chakras operate in the toroidal field. That's about the individual. And these little vortexes here are the ones that suck in, guess what? The engrams and in the activated shells. They exist and they float outside the body, and then as we access them through light entering the optic nerve, we open up this whole channel here so that these chakras are accessed. So we can pull in for conscious recall. So the chakras are very much part of what we do. We have the psychic force chakras, the mental force, the ego force, the expressive force, the drive, the emotional force, the physiologic, and the regenerative force of the various chakras, and those are what we work with. So chakrology is very much part of our studies in dynamic. Y'all writing down the frequencies. Just give me the frequencies. Just give me the frequencies.
What does it mean by the chronic force vitality C of
Sea of Dirac?
Dirac? What is that? What's
That's the
frequency
cosmic.
on that?
Well, that's the cosmic sea of orgone. That's the one that's wide open. You go down in the elevator shaft and you feel butterflies.
Ah,
It's wide open. That's your abdominal psychic center, as they call it, or the abdominal brain in yoga. So you can get these afterwards if you like. I'll leave this up here for you. Just give me the frequencies.
These are in the books.
Yes, they're all in the materials. Yeah. Yeah,
Help us to remember it. Yes.
See, as soon as I said secrecy, powerful little engram, isn't it? That little secrecy engram slipped right in there. Tranced right out on me, didn't you? Well, I want to give you the yoga dynamic of these 7 centers.
Really?
Basically, you have 7 centers. You have the root chakra, you have the sacral chakra, you have the solar plexus, you have the heart, you have the throat. That's good. You've all read about them. Third eye, and the crown. And our aim is to take people, again, that tone scale, if you just turn it upside down like I showed you on the other chart, ties into all these chakras. So our aim is to take the people upscale, because at the crown chakra, if you can get a little taste of that, you hit nirvana. And you have a few little picograms of hormone that get released, and your body goes through a corporeal change. It goes through a Plutonian Sagittarian transit at that point. Do or die. Live or perish. Okay. Let's talk first about the root chakra. What is the emotional proclivity of the root chakra? No, it's really...
Vitality, life force.
Now I'm talking from a little different slant. It basically, that is the chakra of self-esteem. Mm-hmm. So there's either self-esteem or the feeling of unworthiness, cowardness, lack of confidence, insecurity, and hopelessness. So when the root chakra is weak, cowardice and insecurity set in, because this controls your adrenals, controls your adrenal glands. And that just goes on and spins off to other dynamics. And I've mapped out the chakrology for you in the manual. It's there, so you can get more of a taste and an essence of it. But bottom line is, it's the center of self-esteem. And again, you'll note that we're running from frequency response from ELF up to megahertz. In frequency response to these chakras. Because it's one big demodulating circuit, you see. The chakras are directly accessible to the electromagnetic spectrum. And they know that. That's why they choose certain frequency domains for cellular phones, which happens to fit the human cranial resonance cycle, so that they know that the... Never mind. They are going to be into thought control and thought processing. And they have the technology to tap your mind. And I had a PhD, MD, that was commissioned by IT&T to go to Switzerland to be on that committee, who found that out and told me that.
How do we block that?
You don't use cellular phones. Move to an island.
Don't use cellular phones.
Don't use cellular phones. They're developing the technology that all of this is going to be rather accessible to them.
Only cellular?
At this point, it's cellulars, yeah.
Yes, does that include cordless? No.
I don't think so.
Now, did I
No.
hear you also say that they can mess with our mental facilities
Yes.
this way also?
That's in research now. Sorry. Now, next chakra. Next chakra. The big S.
Female.
The big S, sexual fulfillment. And the flip side of that, of course, is sexual inhibition. But that's not really the root at it, if you pardon my pun. Because the emotions that are keyed in with that are jealousy and envy. And one other one that's really one of the most powerful ones is people that have inhibited sacral plexus are afraid of what other people will say.
My
And
mother, what will the neighbors think? Yeah.
this is the biggest poison in today's world, is people that are afraid of what others will say, which is why they, in fact, do not progress. Because they are not just sexually inhibited, they are inhibited, because with sex also comes self-love. So the root chakra has lots of problems today, as is easily witnessed by all of your female complaints and all of your sexual perversions that are out there today. See, those are indicative of the problem at hand. And we have such emotions down there where the jealousy and envy, the sexual inhibitions, result in statements like, "Oh my God, if I only had doubt, pity, and envy," you see? We go back to the other slide. Now this tone scale, and you should in fact just memorize this beautiful little chart. Because all these points key in and become part of our homeopathy. See, these poisons fit into these things. Unexpressed resentment, lockjaw, muffle mouth, swears in private, appears to be chewing when silent. Sexual inhibition, because of the connection between the sacrum and the lower jaw. You see, the two centers are interreactive between throat and sacral plexus. See, so that's that jealousy, envy thing creeping in here, right? And these are the emotions tied in with it. Covert hostility was apparent presence. Oh, he's so nice, that's something. See? And it's all tied into that. So these are the keynotes you need to recognize as you get into homeopathy and as you get into this PCT work, so that you just start indicators. Thought of somebody, didn't you? It's just like him, isn't it? So these are statements and proclivities that are made because of inhibitions of these different centers. And you want to become intimately familiar with all of these scales, because then we plug in the remedy bands for you. And now you see how your gestalt just widens dramatically? He's such a lycopodium. Next, third center.
I'm sorry, what's the gland with the number 2 control? The first one.
Testes and ovaries. From an Alice Bailey perspective. There are other differing schools of thought, but I happen to agree with the Tibetan concept. Yeah, those are the best books. Those are the best. Y'all read Alice Bailey?
Yep.
One time or two?
One
See,
time,
yeah.
about 12 years ago.
Oh.
I'm not up on it, don't I?
What's wrong?
Calcarea sulfurica.
Oh.
That's what's wrong.
Oh. Rundown time. If you get into this, you get to the highest levels of the book. When you get to Nevis, I'll show you these books. Not just those, but some other ones. How many have seen Matrix series? Matrix fans out here? Just one? Yeah. Next, third center. Solar plexus, abdominal brain, and here you have the desire for sensation set right in. And that can be good or bad. People that have good solar plexus centers are what we call centered people. They're very adept, mechanically orientated, easy to grasp onto things, learn quick learners. Okay, they have good control. Or the other emotional poisoning is anger and hatred. And this is where it's all centered, anger and hatred. And the vocalization of this is in swearing and profanity. Very, very poisonous. You know, public profanity in Nevis is against the law. It's flatly against the law. And they will take you to the magistrate. You will be fined. And if you don't have a permit to stay there, you will be escorted to the airport and asked to leave. They take it very offensively. And it's wonderful because it's so refreshing to be around people that don't use four-letter words and litter their conversations with these things on a frequent basis. It's a whole different concept. If you did that in this country, you could get rid of most of TV. And you'd stop a lot of stuff in its tracks, I think, anyway. Heart center. Okay? Love, worthiness, and a very gracious personality. Okay? When the heart's open. And what if it's closed? Unworthiness, miserliness, right? Distaste for life. And they always want to get it a little cheaper. Because they don't see abundance.
Does that mean bargain shopping is out?
Sulfur?
No more Marshalls and Rosses.
Fifth chakra, responsibility. Responsibility. Opposite of that? Irresponsibility, or lack of responsibility. And also here, under fifth chakra, foolish activity, gambling, right? Folly, very foolish activity. The opposite of responsibility, foolish activity. Those people that just have to gamble. And they have another favorite saying when this chakra is blocked, I can't stand. You know, the I can'ts. You hear the conversations littered with I can'ts. So you know the throat's blocked, right? Right from the start, just I can'ts creep into the conversations. Don't you just hate? I can't stand. You know, those things kind of creep in. Sixth chakra is a person that is very intuitive and also very grounded, very strong-willed. Opposite of that, dead conservative. Blocked vision. Okay? These are people that exist in that domain of rational displeasure. Rational displeasure, eternal suffering, right? Which deserve compliments. Yeah. Also here, problems concentrating, like they're in a mental fog. Huh? What'd you say? You say it to them again, and it's like, would you repeat that? The throats, you know, the centers are blocked. There's no cognition.
I thought that came with menopause.
Well, you know, they say first the mind, and I'll stop. Seventh chakra. This is what we call the late afternoon seminar giddies. It's when you reach overload, you got to laugh. Otherwise, you're going to blow. The seventh center, when it's operating efficiently, what I found basically is what we call the sun in the first house. It's a person that knows who they are and why they're here. Even if it's wrong. At least they know. Right? They know why they're here and they know who they are. Basically, they're very grounded people. Okay? And there's a feeling of wholeness to them. They don't rely upon the words of others. Okay? They're definitely not stuck down in that second chakra where they fear what others will say. They know what they want. They know who they are, even if it's wrong. Okay? Yes?
If your seventh chakra is open, does that mean that all the rest of the chakras are open?
I'm not saying it's open. I'm saying when they're operating functional chakras. Okay? When it's open, then something else happens. That's what we call going home, when you get it open. When it's blocked, okay, there's a lack of trust in the self. This is people who like scientific credibility, or what Father would say at church, right? Or what the pastor would say, or what the minister would say, right? And they have an overt intellectual defensiveness. An overt intellectual defensiveness about anything relating to metaphysics, very high, lofty subjects. They get very defensive. So that gives you the chakrology in a nutshell. That's why we get into it, because all of these, of course, are keyed into colors. So we use the colors to activate these complexes as we go into PCT. And there they are. Now you've reached, you're reaching a level of Buddhahood under this process, and they have no idea what you're seeing through this whole process at this point. Correct? Just like this morning when you started, you had no idea you were going to get into all of this by this afternoon, did you? I wouldn't think so.
I had a surmise.
Well, you've been to one of my other seminars. You know how crafty I am with that 10th house sun. So, how do we begin? How do we begin? Okay? And that's, number one, the mind is everything. The mind is everything. The problem is, through innumerable incarnations, we have been hypnotized with words. We've been hypnotized with words. That's the bottom line. It's all a word game. So basically, we just got to plug you into Norton Disk Doctor, clean up your program disk, take the viruses out, and you'll be fine. You'll be operating functionally. So the whole concept of yoga is mental empowerment through dehypnotization, to work your way out of the trance. And you can do a lot of this yourself. In fact, you will have to do a lot of it yourself through successive daily applications. And I'm going to give you those keys. Number two, submission of the lower desires to higher mind. The only salvation is a disciplined mind. That's very Buddhistic. But that's it. The only salvation through karma and suffering, which Maya is. Basically, Maya is suffering. Suffering is Maya. Maya is a suffering. It's constant suffering. Because why? It's thought that's preceded by effort and counter by counter effort. That is the fundamental of suffering. That's fundamental suffering. So you need three things for this. Number one is confidence. Because the confidence, you can think this is all pretty and this is wonderful today, but if it's not implemented with confidence, then it doesn't mix with the desire body. That's why people's prayers are never answered, because they don't even know how to pray. They don't understand the mechanism of prayer. Because the prayer is just not a thought where usually people use prayer as a last-ditch effort, right? When they've totally convinced themselves of the symptoms, they've totally convinced themselves of the reality of the symptoms, then they leave it to the effort of prayer, which is just a mental infatuation with an idea that has no power of feeling. You know, haven't you ever once in your life had a point where you just felt, you knew that was going to happen? Right? So the mental body, this is what they call chitta maya in Hindu philosophy. The mental body has to mix with the astral body. And then that's the only way change will take place, because the mental energy has to filter down to lower frequency levels in order to affect the physical. That's the secret. So the confidence is priority, because confidence also means the next thing, expectation. Now here's where we sort of separate the men from the boys and the ladies from the girls, because You have to learn with expectation how to do goal setting. Goal setting is all part of this. And in your lesson material, you read about there's even a way of dehypnotizing yourself through making mandalas. You know how to make a mandala? It's very simple. You make a desire to have something completed, and you just write it down. You'd be amazed. Right? So let's just say you can't stand cigarette smoke. And here you are, very allergic to it. Your eyes run, your nose twitches, you sneeze, you start to have headache. You just simply start with the simple exercises. I can't stand cigarette smoke. And all of a sudden, there's a reversal starts to happen. Then you go, I love cigarette smoke. I can't stand cigarette smoke. I love cigarette smoke. And all of a sudden, you'll dehypnotize yourself out of it. Just through that little simple process. Repeating the opposite and writing it down.
How often?
And you go through a process, then your subconscious starts to go through a process because the feeling is being mixed with mind. There's a reciprocation going on, even if it's not consciously recognizable at the moment. So a big part of goal setting is to write down what you're going to do tomorrow and have a list. Right? This is just simple. Really, it's basic think and grow rich philosophy. But no one ever does it because they don't write down the goal setting. But that's mandala setting. You're using your own handwriting. Making a goal, that's a mandala. That's an energy pattern right into the future. If you want to laptop it, but put it on something and remind yourself of it because then your subconscious is now seeing it. You're not just cognating it, your subconscious is seeing it too.
Question back to, do you continue to repeat, I like, I don't like, I like, I don't like? In other words, you stay in both.
Yeah,
And you create the...
exactly. You neutralize it.
How often do you do this? How many times would you repeat it? How often? Does it matter?
Every day. Just a little exercise in consciousness. And then, thirdly, the most important of all is suggestion. Continuous suggestion. Because without suggestion, no one could attain perfection of consciousness. Because suggestion is the invocation of your mental body constantly into your life. You become consciously in a mode of removing the wanderings of your mind, allowing your mind just to wander hither and thither, and go into a state of autosuggestion, where the mind is totally influencing, bombarding, overpowering chitta maya, which is illusion. Okay? And that's one of the secrets of yoga, because the suggestion inspires expectation, and the suggestion inspires confidence completely. So the eternal fact is either you are a command by your own mind or you command your mind by suggestion. Did you get that? Either you receive command by your own mind, internal auditory dialogue, chatterbox, 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 thought preceded by effort, kind of thought preceded by effort, kind of. If you let that run you all day, it will run you into the ground. You'll be a nervous wreck, which probably half the people in this room already are. If we got them on the table and take them up with a little massage and find all these sore spots existing about their entire neuromuscular system. Or you command your mind by a continuous suggestion. And one of the secrets to that continuous suggestion process is to be constantly reading, upgrading your database, invocating new knowledge all the time, constantly accelerating. Then you get into speed reading. Then you get into tapping, as we get to know in lesson 9 of your course, where we develop communication lines where telepathic communication, you start linking. And it's all there. But first you have to have confidence, then you have to have expectation, followed by continuous suggestion to the point that you got it. Person opens their mouth, I got it. My wife, would you just stop? 2 words. Okay,
Yeah.
I got it. You don't need to say anymore.
Yeah. But that happens, you don't know that. Please stop, you don't have to.
Yeah. And the moment you're careless, you slip back into the subconscious suggestion and internal auditory dialogue box, and you go on with the chatterbox, and it just runs away with you. See? So, in other words, suggestion is a state of continuous meditation. That's what it boils down to. Which does not require internal auditory dialogue, which is beautiful. Because when you get into high mind, there are no words. I've enjoyed today. It's been fun sharing with you all, which I have because I watch all your faces and your reactions. I think you had fun too. Because if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. And we welcome you to the program. We want your participation to move on with us in this ever-burdening story that's going to start blossoming now. Because as you can see, there's an awful lot to it. So it's going to be a lot of fun in the process, and we have a very big job ahead of us, a big mission. A lot of problems out there that need our continuous suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you.